Where boots hit the deck, stories take flight. Welcome to the Barracks Life, a podcast that brings you authentic stories from the men and women who've walked the path of military service. Did you know that CH-53 has a nickname, the Hurricane Maker? This comes from the powerful downwash created by its massive rotor system that can actually blow people off their feet. Trust me, I've seen it, and create mini dust storms in desert environments. I'm your host, Sergeant Khit Lovan, United States Marine Corps, and today we have an honored guest, retired Gunnery Sergeant Jose Manuel Valdez, sharing his unique journey with us. Before we dive into your military experience, help the listeners get to know you a little bit. Yeah, where did you grow up? What was life before you joined the service?
Well, I was born in Tijuana, Mexico, so just on the other side of the border there, from San Diego. My father brought me here, and my brother. There's only two of us. When I was 2, my brother was 1. Pretty much we moved to San Diego, Chula Vista area. Didn't go very far, and that's where I grew up. I spent my elementary years there, my middle school years there. High school, graduated from Chula Vista High School in 1991.
91. That was probably a tough time back then, huh?
So right around that time, Desert Storm was starting off.
Okay.
So there was a lot of the insecurities within our age group. I was on the wall between, do I go to the military? Do I go to college? Before that, nobody in my family had ever served in the military. So my folks were like, oh, no, you're going to school. And being the first one in our family to go to college, my dad was a self-made man, self-educated man. He didn't finish high school, but a very smart individual. His dad, my grandfather, owned a lot of businesses in Tijuana, which is one of the reasons why we ended up here in the U.S. Believe it or not, America is not the only country that deports people, right? Mexico does too.
Wow.
My dad got deported from Mexico back to the U.S. because my dad was born here, a U.S. citizen living in Mexico. Now, the only time that Mexico does it is when you got something they want. And at that time, my grandfather had passed away, and all the stuff that he owned, all the stores, he had a bunch of products that sold, a bunch of stores that sold leather products like purses and shoes and jackets and wallets, belts, all kinds of leather stuff on Revolution Avenue. And my dad stood to inherit all until, his partners decided, no, he's a U.S. citizen, and we want what he has, and we're going to call the immigration on him. And they did just that. And my dad had to flee to the U.S. with his family, which was my mom, my brother, and I. So we did lose a lot of stuff in Mexico, but honestly, I think in the end, we ended up winning because I got to grow up here in the U.S. And growing up in San Diego, like I said, 1991, I was getting ready to graduate high school. I applied to a few colleges to please my parents. Chico State, the party school, right? San Diego State.
Another party school.
Yeah, and UCSD and San Diego State accepted my application. So I guess I went home to my dad. I guess I'm going to college. So I did that for 2 years, 91, 92, 92, 93. And then in 1993, a lot was going on with Desert Storm at the time, and I had some buddies that did go into the Marine Corps. And I was watching on the news one day. I was with my buddies at college, consuming some beverages, having fun in college, like most college kids do. And we knew a friend of ours was overseas in Kuwait, and he's like, "Yo, man, we should do something about this, bro." I'm like, "Do something about what, man? Eric's out there, fighting the fight, supporting our country. Mm-hmm. We should do our part." Yeah. Like, you know what, bro? You're right, man. Liquid courage, right? You're right, man. We should do something, right? Let's go to the recruiter's office, and so we made a deal to go to the recruiter's office the next morning. Only difference is he didn't show up. I did. He didn't. Next, I'm on the yellow footprints.
You had a little bit more liquid courage than him.
Yeah, I ended up on the yellow footprints. This was in July. Yeah, July of '93, and then I was supposed to ship sometime in 94, but they needed an early shipper, and so they sent me in October of 1993. Not even 5 months in the dep. I was in which was kind of tough too, because MCRD San Diego was right down the street from where I live.
Yeah.
So being stuck there, knowing I was so close to home, was unbearable sometimes. Yeah. And the drill instructors knew it. And so they would use that against me. When they wanted to punish me, they'd be like, "Hey, Recruit Valdez, come here." "Yes, sir." "Hey, what's that out there?" "That's the I-5, sir." "Yeah, but what is it? Tell my buddy drill instructor here what it is to you." "That's my way home, sir." "Oh, real good. Start pushing."
Those drill instructors, man, they really know how to get underneath your skin, huh?
Oh, man. It's like they're trained how to do that
Yeah.
at drill instructor school.
Dude, they're so good at that, man. So before you joined, though, did you have some kind of career path in line ahead of you? Like, did you have any like passions or goals or anything of that nature?
Believe it or not, I'm actually pretty smart, you know.
No, dude, what?
And
Marine
so,
smart?
yeah. Believe it or not, I love math. To me,
Yeah.
numbers is real easy, you know. And I have one of those photographic memories. When I see stuff, I learn it really fast, and I memorize it, and it stays with me for a long time. So I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a math teacher, and when I was those 2 years at San Diego State, that was my major, mathematics, with a minor in mechanical engineering. But I mean things change. You know, I was in college, but I don't think I was supposed to be there. I was there, but I didn't. I needed to be somewhere else. I wasn't mentally prepared for college. It was easy, but it was too easy that I was having too much fun. Oh, I wasn't the type of guy that would sit there and study for hours because I didn't need to, you know. And because I wasn't studying for hours, I was doing other things like playing golf, going bowling, frat parties, chasing girls. By my fourth semester, my grades actually started falling, and by that time, my younger brother, remember, only a year apart, he was also at San Diego State. So now my pops was paying tuition for two of us. Now, granted, tuition back then was $500 a semester. Right? It's not what they pay today.
Yeah.
We're like 10 times that almost.
Probably 100 times now.
But so my dad, you know, he was a mailman. That was a lot of money, and so seeing that I wasn't going down the right path, I wasn't really focused, and like I said, that liquid courage, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do my time, do the Marine Corps for 4 years, and then take that college money, because that's what appealed to me. I would take that college money and come back to college and finish on my own account without burdening my pops. And then he can focus on paying for my brother's education. You know, and in the end, it worked out because my brother got his degree. He's a kinesiologist. He actually runs a health and wellness program for a company called little company down in Carlsbad called Titleist. Have you guys heard of it?
No, I haven't.
They make golf clubs.
Okay.
Titleist. You serious? You never heard of?
I don't play golf, man. I'm in the, you know, I surf all the time. I'm a big surfer.
Do you know who Tiger Woods is?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I gotta know. Anyways,
I mean, who doesn't know Tiger Woods?
All right, yeah.
I mean, that's about it. That's all my golf knowledge.
so yeah, the Marine Corps was my stepping stone to start my career path. You know, I tried college, and I tell, you know, people I meet today, and when I was a recruiter, because I was a recruiter for 3 years, you know, I would tell some of my applicants, I'm like, you know what, college ain't for everybody.
Right.
You know, of course, that was my selling tool to get them to join the military. But for me, it was the truth. You know, college ain't for everybody. I wasn't ready for college at that time. Not when I was 18, 19 years old.
Right.
You know, so doing the Marine Corps was a great choice for me. I didn't plan on making it a career. You know, that wasn't supposed to be that. It was supposed to be 4 years and out, use college money and finish my education. But, you know, 4 years turned into 8 turned into 12. Next thing you know, I'm at my parade deck, on the parade deck at my retirement ceremony, you know, 20 years later, and thinking to myself, where did the time go? Because it flew by. It was so fast, you know. It's like one day I'm at the Yellow Footprints, next day I'm looking at a platoon full of Marines saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, it just happened so fast. But I mean, it was a long and fruitful and enjoyable career.
Right.
Yeah.
For you, was there any other choice besides the Marine Corps? Was there something that influenced you? I know for me, there wasn't really a choice at all, because I know for me, the Marine Corps was basically it, because I was kind of just so ignorant on the fact of, at the time, I was just like, I'm being infantry, I'm being Marine Corps, this is it for me. And because I just was not educated on any other branch at all. And I was dead set on being a Marine because of how ignorant I was. Did you have any influences on that, or have any education, or what was your deciding factor on the Marines specifically?
Right. So I'm gonna say Eric, because I don't think the recruiters were doing such a great job at my high school. Because I never saw any recruiters at my high school.
Right.
And so the only actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, Larry was another influence, and Larry was a neighbor of ours when I was 12 years old in Chula Vista. We were living in some apartments down there on 8th Street, and Larry was a Marine. He was an old motor T guy, drove 5-ton trucks, but he was a Marine of Marines, dog. This guy was the high and tight, chiseled chin, just total hoorah, right?
Motivator.
Yeah, and he would come home from his deployments, and he'd always bring me and my brother stuff from his deployments, like a foam glider that was camouflaged, soldiers, toy guns, and so that was, now that I think about it, subconsciously that was always there because I was 12 then.
Yeah.
12, 13, and then I never saw Larry again. But then in high school, in college, it was my buddy Eric, because he joined before we did. He joined right after high school in 1991. He went, and then 2 years later, I'm studying on the Yellow Footprints. So not knowing about the other branches, there was no other choice. All I knew was Marines.
Right.
Larry and Eric, and so I don't regret it. I'm glad I joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Best of the best, right?
Same.
What did Will Smith say? The best of the best of the best, sir. You have no clue what we're doing here, do you?
Oh, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we're definitely the best. We hold that to our heart, and we know that. For everyone listening, me and Jose, we both worked on these helicopters called CH-53s. I know for the first time I saw this behemoth that flies in the sky, it was basically just this, like, how is this thing floating, flying, and just this school bus mansion-looking thing in the sky flying. And then when I first started working on it, I'm like, this thing is massive. I can live in this thing. This is big as a studio apartment. And it was just almost mind-boggling. What was your experience on that? The first time, or even just something that solidified, like, wow, this is something that I'm going to take pride in and remember for the rest of my life.
So times were a little bit different when I came in than when you did.
Right.
Because if I remember correctly, you came in, there was no A school. And when you came in, 302 was already on the East Coast.
Yep.
Okay. When I came in, 302 was in Tustin, California.
Okay.
Over there in Irvine. And so I had to go to an A school because that 302 was my C school. The A school was called Basic Helicopter Course. And we didn't know what platform we were going to get. You just went to this course, and it was, straight up. They were just basic helicopter theory. They have hydraulic systems. They use rotor blades. They have engines. And towards the end, the last week of basic helicopters course, which the course was only 4 weeks long, I was there 6 months because the course was so backed up.
Right.
And so for those first 5 months, you got the FAPs, right? You got fapped out to different parts of the base. I was lucky enough to get sent to the fire department, and I would just do yard work for the fire guys, while my course picked up. But when it did pick up, 4 weeks later, at the end of that course, that's when you found out what platform you're going to be on. You were going to either be Hueys and Cobras, H-46s, or H-53s.
And where was this, your A school was at?
Millington, Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeehaw!
Whoa. Yeah.
Farthest I've ever been from home.
It's way different now. Everyone goes to Pensacola.
Yeah.
So
farthest I've ever been from home. First time I've ever seen snow.
Oh.
Okay. First time I ever rode a horse.
Man, you went full country boy.
Dude, yeah. Yeah. First time I ever got in trouble in the Marine Corps. Yeah.
What?
And again, that was also different back in those days than it is today. Today, you get in trouble, your career's pretty much over.
Yeah.
Back then, I was 20 when I joined. I wanted to drink because I was doing it in college, but you couldn't do it legally on the base in NAS Millington. And so a friend of mine showed me how to alter my military ID card. How to put a slit in there
I remember
and slide
this.
a piece, number in there to change your birthday.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I tried to use it.
I know a lot of guys that
at the
did this.
E-Club. I got caught. The staff sergeant that
There's
was
gonna
there.
be a bunch of younger active duty listen to this and be like, dude, I know exactly what he's talking about. You get in there with the needle and you start tampering it, and it makes a certain number look like another number, and it makes you look older. Oh my!
And so, he caught me, and I thought I was done for, man. I thought I was done for. And the stupid thing is that in 3 months I was going to turn 21.
Couldn't wait.
I couldn't wait. And but no, back in those days, the Marine Corps took care of the Marine Corps. Marines took care of Marines, and this staff sergeant chewed my ass. I mean, he laid into me hard in his office, almost had me crying, bro. Had attention, like, so yes, staff sergeant, yes, staff sergeant. He's like, PFC, you've got 3 minutes to get to your barracks. I'm gonna let you leave here, but you better be in your barracks in 3 minutes. I'm gonna call the duty. And if I call the duty and you're not standing there, I'm gonna write you up. Right? Tomorrow morning, you're gonna go tell your instructor that you gotta go to the admin office. You're gonna go tell the admin office that you're dumb, that you washed your ID card, you try to dry it with the iron, and you burned off the plastic because he ripped it. When he found it, he ripped it. And get a new ID card. And I better never see you again here. I'm like, yes, Staff Sergeant. And man, he opened the door. I was like,
he had your back, man. He had your back.
Yeah, and we took care of Marines back then, bro. That was we didn't try to ruin anybody's career.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it seems like anything you do, you're done for. Your military career is over.
Mm-hmm. The infamous ninja punch.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, didn't that happen to you?
Yeah, it did. It did, yes. So for everyone who doesn't know, the ninja punch, NJP is what we call it, non-traditional punishment. It's when you get up you do something, like Jose said, right? You do something that you're not allowed to, you're not supposed to do, and you get punished for it. It's basically a criminal thing. And what happened to me was basically I was drinking in the barracks, heavy alcohol, liquor, and you're not supposed to do that in the barracks. Barracks is a dry barracks. Well, I was drinking, and actually, I wasn't drinking, but I had a liquor bottle in my fridge. I was 26 at the time. So I'm of age, but since the barracks is a dry barracks, I got caught with the liquor in my fridge. And I didn't think anything of it because I'm 26. I have a good reputation with everybody. I was clean. I was a good Marine. And this gunnery sergeant, I'm not going to drop any names, decided to go high and to the right. And high and to the right means like way overboard, do all the punishment. And next thing you know, I got ninja punched. But honestly, it turned out to be the good thing. I didn't lose rank. I took double jeopardy, which means if I did get any kind of trouble, like if I got a speeding ticket or anything like that, I would lose 2 ranks. But I kept my nose clean for 6 months, and then it got washed off my record. Mm-hmm. That just shows you how the Marine Corps is now. But I think one of the main reasons why I was able to get that was because of my character, because of who I was and what kind of reputation I had and stuff like that. But yeah, I was one of the lucky ones because I've heard many stories of how the Marine Corps is now, and I'm sure you have too, Gunny, that Marine Corps, a lot of Marines nowadays are just dropping like flies for all of the little tiniest things, and it's very, very sad.
Yeah. Well, back to your question, I finished BHC. I found out I was going to be an H-53 guy.
Yeah.
And again, I've never seen the H-53. First time because, meet this big beast. And so, but it's in California, and I'm kind of happy. I was hoping to be a Huey and Cobras because they're in Pendleton, and that's where their school was. But I got the H-53, which was all the way in Irvine. So still California, but a little bit further than I was hoping to be to San Diego. I finished my C school, did all the training, did the coursework. We did some OJT with 302. And then out of the 17 students in my class, 13 got to stay in Tustin. Mm-hmm. I wasn't one of them. I wanted to stay in Tustin so bad because I'm from California. I want to be home.
Yeah.
But I wasn't one of them. One guy got really sucker punched, and he got sent to the East Coast, New River. I'm like, I'm glad I'm not that knucklehead. But me and two other guys got orders to Hawaii.
Oh, that's so terrible, bro.
You know what?
That's so bad.
Bro, I never liked the kind. So at the time, I actually was not happy. At the time, I had a little girlfriend in San Diego, and I found out I was getting orders to go to Hawaii. I'm like looking for somebody in my class to swap orders with, but nobody wanted to swap orders. So I ended up getting on the plane, going to Hawaii, and then a week or two after being there, I was like, "What the hell am I crying about? This is Hawaii, bro." I'm out here on the sands of Waikiki, in Honolulu. It was awesome. And then I saw the 53, in action, because up until then I had only seen trainers.
Yeah, disassembled complete skeletons of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the first time getting to Hawaii, seeing it in action, flying over Kaneohe Bay, with the Ko'olau mountain range in the background.
Range,
Dude, it was majestic, man. I was like, man. Wow. And I'm a firm believer that because the Marine Corps put me there, there's a reason I made the Marine Corps a career. Because it was just so beautiful to me. And then, the Marine Corps was easy. It's just a game. It's just a mind game, The physical fitness, we got used to that.
The Marines kind of force you to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of Marines get out of it, but it's kind of easy to stay in it, really. If you're just not a slob, but no offense to anyone out there. But
to answer your question, my first experience seeing the 53 in action, that I would define it as majestic.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I remember, like I said earlier, it's crazy. It's mind-boggling to me. So you did 20 years, right? So that means you enlisted a few times.
Yeah.
Right? And I heard you enlisted in some pretty amazing places, right? I heard Arizona Memorial, Iwo Jima, and Babylon.
The ruins.
The ruins of Babylon. Man, that's incredible, man. Yeah. Most Marines are lucky to even get to the flagpole, Yeah. What was it like standing in those places and making that kind of commitment? What was running through your head? The emotions that you were feeling, the part of the community, or I never re-enlisted. I did one enlistment, and just that legacy that you're going to be a part of.
So, remember I said I'm pretty smart? I like to read.
Yeah.
I like to read a lot too, and I like history.
Okay.
I like history books. Prior to going to all these places, I know my American history pretty good. So, World War I, World War II, the Civil War, all these events that had happened through time. I like to read stories about, because to me, they're not just history. They're stories. They're stories, and some are entertaining, some are sad. Some get you angry, like Pearl Harbor. I've been there and seen people come out of the little show, the little movie that they showed you at the memorial, just angry as hell. Matter of fact, I took my mom there one time, and she came out. She tried to kick a Japanese person. My 72-year-old mom was pissed off. She's like, "What are they doing here?"
So she's trying to kick everybody in Hawaii.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, "Ma, aplácate, come on." She was offended, Yeah. And she's an immigrant. She's from Guadalajara, Mexico. It's not even American, bro. But 1993, so 1997, the Arizona Memorial. We got to go out there, take the ferry out to the actual memorial where the Arizona is laying.
So some of the listeners or what don't understand the importance of the Arizona Memorial. Can you explain for that?
So during World War II, when the Allies and the Axis were fighting each other, America wasn't involved yet. America was just, kind of being a bystander. They were sending, goods and services, money to some of the Allies, but not really in the fight. And right before December 7th, 1941, Shortly before that, there was a Japanese ambassador in America talking to the president, talking about, we're going to do good, we're going to be friends, everything's going to be great between us. Trying to, it was basically a distraction,
Right.
because while they were doing that over here,
Like fluff us up.
yeah, they were fluffing us up, distracting the U.S. government. They were planning an attack on Pearl Harbor, and so they made a really good movie called Bora Bora Bora, and that's about how they came up on America. How they surprised everybody. Nobody expected Pearl
Right.
Harbor to get attacked. The only saving grace to allow the U.S. to strike back was the fact that at the time that Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese, all the carrier groups were out to sea. It was the battleships that were on. They call it Battleship Row, right there on Pearl Harbor, where the Arizona and a few other battleships there were stationed. When the Japanese flew in, nobody saw them coming. They took out some of the air bases. They went to I think Kadena and Barbers Point. What's the one over there by Kaneohe on the way to
Hecklin? No.
No. It's on the way to Sea Life
Sea Life Park?
Sea Life Park. Yeah, there's a little air base there. Anyways,
I don't know.
So they hit some of those air bases first to take out the air, to maintain air superiority, basically. And then once they did that, they came in and started bombing Carrier Row, and the USS Arizona is one of those ships that got hit pretty hard. Almost 100 sailors, went down with the ship, and to this day, their remains are still in the ship. They have a burial tomb. They never. Some people think it's unjust. Some people think it's cruel to have left their bodies there. But how many sailors have you met that don't want a burial at sea? Right. A lot of them request. My uncle, who passed away 3 years ago, around Thanksgiving, I had to go to San Francisco to help my aunt spread his ashes at sea because that's what he wanted.
Right.
And he was in the Navy during that time. Anyways.
But yeah.
So that memorial was set up to remember them. There's a huge wall on the back of the memorial with all their names of all those sailors that died there. And then there's room because even after the attack, some of the survivors that passed away, they're taken there. They're taken there today. And so it's just a way of remembering the people that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And so to be there, to be able to do my first reenlistment at the Arizona Memorial, in front of all these, sailors and Marines that gave the ultimate sacrifice was humbling.
Yeah.
Humbling to say the least. So we showed up out there in the morning, took the ferry out to the ship. Right as the sun was rising, we got to raise the flag.
That's awesome.
Salute it, bring it back down. We folded it. My reviewing officer, my reenlisting officer was my OIC, the flatline OIC. He did the discharge portion first, which is when they tell you, hey, you've completed your time, you're now discharged. And then right after that, they do the reenlistment and bring you back into the Marine Corps. So for a split second, you're actually out of the Corps.
Yeah. And then, so after the Arizona Memorial, then you did Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Man, that's a...
Dude.
For you guys that don't know, man, Iwo Jima is a huge significance to the Marine Corps and America in general, but man, heavy for the Marine Corps. Can you explain that? And explain in Iwo Jima in general, and then explain how that felt for you.
Okay. So Iwo Jima was strategically positioned to allow America to be able to strike back to Japan for what they did to us in Pearl Harbor. All right, they said, we get this island, we can set up our air base here and then fly anywhere and hit Japan from anywhere from this island. And so the powers to be at the time decided, we're going to go there to Iwo Jima. We're going to take the Marines in there. We're going to take the Army in there. We're going to attack by sea like we always do, right? We're amphibious by nature. But they're like, it's a small island. We're going to be in and out of there. We won't have that thing in a matter of days. They're thinking 2-3 days, we'll have that island and it'll be ours. We'll put our flag on top of it and we'll have our air base. A month later, and thousands of soldiers and Marines and sailors, died on the sands of Iwo Jima, because right in the middle of this island of Iwo Jima, there's a mountain called Mount Sarubachi. And Mount Suribachi, the Japanese were dug into Mount. They had these pillboxes placed perfectly aligned in locations around the mountain that had they were just watching the shoreline. And so anybody that was coming in, they were just mowing them down like a lawnmower with the machine guns, pop, 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 pop. And so it was a very bloody war, and it took a lot longer than anticipated to take over. But when they finally did, they have this very famous memorial, this statue up there that they made of the 3 Marines and the 1 sailor that were actually raising the flag on Mount Suribachi.
Some of you guys may know, and you guys probably envision it. And if you see it, it's very, very iconic. So it holds a very significant part to every Marine's heart. So yeah, you being able to re-enlist on that.
Yeah, so
tell us about.
So this was in 2001. I was on a 31st MEU, and we were doing again amphibious assaults practices. And so we were going to fly off the ship. We were getting close to Iwo Jima because that's where we were going to do our training. But before the training started, somebody had a bright idea to ask if anybody was be interested in re-enlist on the island.
No,
and so there was about 15, 16 service members that were saying, hey, I want, if you're within this time period, you can re-enlist, and we'll set up your ceremony on Iwo Jima. I was one of them. So we were going to fly 253s off of the USS Essex, fly onto the airfield at the top of that, and take a van down to the beaches, or to the beach, and then do our ceremony there. I was in Dash 1. Dash 2 had, it was me and my crew in Dash 1. Dash 2 had the career planner, who had all the paperwork, and had the other service members that were going to read us. There were Marines and sailors both there. And we got ready to take off. And we left, flew off the ship. Dash 2 broke down. Never made it off the ship. So the only person that got off the ship to the island was me and my crew.
Yeah.
So now we're sitting there on the airfield. We're waiting. The Captain Ruffini, John Ruffini was his name. Captain Ruffini comes, goes into the tower, comes back out. He's like, hey, I was a sergeant then. He's like, hey, Sergeant Valdez, they're not going to come. I'm like, what do you mean they're not coming, sir? Yeah, the plane broke down. They don't have a backup. I mean, that doesn't surprise you, right? no backup. The 53 broke down on the deck. There's no backup. It's just us. Shoot, sir, what are we going to do? Your re-enlistment.
We're going to complete the mission still.
I'm like, we can still do that, sir? He's like, yeah, I memorized everything.
Yeah.
Like, Max, sir. He was another one of my flightline OICs, Captain
Nice.
Ruffini. And so we took the van down to the beach, got down there. And he's like, okay, well, we're looking around. We got our little barrels full of sand to take with us.
Yeah.
And I mean, the sand there is like charcoal.
Yeah, it's black.
Yeah, it's like black and silvery. It's got this
shine to it.
But it was just thinking about everything that happened on that beach. You can still see some of the old artillery pieces that were laying there, all rusted. Some old ship parts all rusted and just never touched again.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about this is in the 40s when that happened. Here I am in 2011, right, doing this. And so it's like, wow, so much time has passed. And so Captain Ruffini's like, you want to do it here? You want to do it up there? I'm like, up where, sir? On the mountain. I'm like,
no.
We can go up there? Yeah, let's go.
That's awesome.
So we hiked up to the top of Mount Suribachi, and we did it right there by the memorial. He did the discharge portion, and he stops. He's like, okay, now you're now out, Mr. Valdez. I'm like, cool, sir, thanks. And then he starts walking away. I'm like, wait, what are you doing, sir? I'm going home. Hey, you need to re-enlist me. I ain't re-enlisting you. He was just messing with me, of course. But yeah, he did the re-enlistment. We hiked back down to where the van was, caught it, went back to the airfield, and flew back to the ship.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, Mount Suribachi on the sands of Iwo Jima.
That's crazy because even with you being the only one out of 16 people,
yeah, it's about 16,
and you being the only one and being Mount Suribachi, man, that's super impactful and just amazing to be a part of that legacy as well. And then the ruins of Babylon as well. Tell us about that.
So after that, see, the Marine Corps hooks you up, but they always get you in the end,
Hey.
right? Because as soon as I re-enlisted, I got back to the ship. The very next day, I've got web orders to recruiting duty.
Oh.
Nobody wants to be a recruiter. Nobody. I'm like, what do you mean recruiting duty? I mean, we're not even off our deployment yet. And like 2 weeks after I get back from deployment, I got to report to recruiter school. And so for the next, I think it was like 2 months on this deployment, I'm trying to talk to whoever I can to get out of going to recruiting duty. Mind you, it is now July of 2001. July of 2001. So that was when I reenlisted. So 97 and then 2001, July. Something very important happened that year. All right. September goes around and I can't get out of my orders. I have to go to recruit duty. There's nothing that anybody could do to get me out of it. So, I tucked my head between my tail and again, recruiting duty was in San Diego at MCRD San Diego. So it's right down the street from my home. So I go back to MCRD for a second time. I did not like it here the first time. And now I'm back. Oh my God. So to be a recruiter, we checked in on a Tuesday, September 8th, 2001. It was a Tuesday morning. I checked into recruiter school. And we're sitting there. We're getting our introduction. We're getting all our materials. They're telling us what to expect. They're doing the admin stuff. Height and weights. The scores, everything. 3 days later, the Twin Towers get hit.
Yeah. So
we're all sitting in the classroom watching the North Tower on fire because the first plane had just flown into it. There's our instructor has the TV in the classroom turned on, and we're sitting there in disbelief, like, what the hell? How do you fly a plane into a building? How stupid can you be? In plain daylight to fly a plane into a building? All this airspace that's around you, and you got to go hit one of the tallest buildings in New York. And so we're all joking. How Marines are, we're joking, taking this lightly, and then a few minutes later, we watch the second plane fly into the South Tower. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, that ain't no accident.
Yeah.
That was not an accident. This actually just happened. We just got attacked. Pearl Harbor all over again. Right? 60 years later, we're getting attacked on American soil again. 1941, 2001. How many is that? 60 years.
Yeah.
So I'm looking around the classroom. I'm looking at my fellow recruiter students. I'm like, hey, guys, this is it. This is our ticket out of recruit duty. We're going back to the fleet. And I know it sucks, but we're going to war, man.
Yeah.
This is why we're Marines. We train to fight. This is our fight. We just got attacked. We're going to war. We're going back to the fleet. And the drone, my recruiter instructor is like, no, Sergeant, you're not. This is when we need you the most on the streets, recruiting the Americans that are going to go fight that fight. I'm like, dude, are you serious?
You're like, damn.
So for the next 3 years, I got to recruit in Los Angeles, California, and Pasadena, the city of roses. And it was right during the time that the war started. So patriotism was at a peak high in America. I have never seen it. I mean, I was turning people away because everybody wanted to join, do their part. It was amazing. For the first year the war started, there was people just old guys, young guys, women, illegals, everything, man. Trying to join. But that only lasted about a year because then the protesters started coming out, and that made things kind of difficult. Even just being in uniform on the street, they would challenge you, they would curse at you, they would actually try block the doors and not let you get into your office or let applicants come in to talk to you.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, they were saying they were some vulgar stuff. And there were times when you just wanted to go and punch somebody in the mouth.
Right.
But you couldn't. You got to be the bigger man, be the bigger person.
I was really young during that, so 2001. I was in the 4th grade, but I remember that day. I never even thought about the backlash because I never lived it, right? So just even hearing about it is kind of just eye-opening, and you living it is kind of just like, whoa, how do you even just like deal with that? Like you have some crazy event. We just got attacked, right? We just got attacked. We got Americans wanting to serve, and then you got other Americans trying to stop it.
Yeah. That's the thing. They were Americans.
Right.
Our own people were, and so for a minute there, you kind of understood where the Vietnam veterans,
right,
what they dealt with,
kind of makes me want to think
what they dealt with coming back from that conflict, because that wasn't even considered a war.
Right.
That was considered a conflict, and it was a very unpopular conflict. And so, they were treated very poorly.
Right.
They weren't taken care of like we are today. And so, just the little time that we spent because that only lasted for about a year. And then the supporters started, when the supporters started popping up, they would fight each other. The supporters, the fight was between them now. They started to leave us alone. So it made things kind of easier for us at that time. But yeah, that was 3 years. I got done with recruiting duty. I put in a bunch. I had an excellent recruiting career. I actually had an opportunity to stay out there and be a career recruiter, but that wasn't me. I love talking to people. I'm a people person. So being on recruiting duty for me was easy. What was not easy was the fact that the people that I was recruiting, they were going to the war. They were doing their part. I'd meet underage kids who wanted to join, and I'd have to go talk to their parents. And one of the first questions out of their parents' mouths, obviously, is, "Can you guarantee us that my son or daughter is not going to go to war?" No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't, and I won't. What I can guarantee you is that your son or daughter is going to be well trained for whatever adversities they might encounter while at war. I guarantee you that the person to their left and to the right are going to be just as trained. But in the military, that's what we do. We fight wars. So, no. And if it's what, little Johnny or little Susie wants to do, then I suggest you support your son or daughter.
Right, yeah.
Because whether you support them here now or not, they're going to do it. If they can't do it when they're 17, they're going to do it when they're 18, with or without your permission. Yeah. So be on their side. Yeah. Man, I would make parents cry all the time. I ended up with a little bit over 102 contracts total. So I got my Centurion Award when I was out there. Nice. And out of all those men and women that I recruited, young men and women that I recruited, only 2 of them didn't finish training. And I had one that passed away in war. He was a tough one. That was a real hard loss for me because Dion Whitley is his name. I met him at John Muir High School. He was a senior. He was in the ROTC program. Motivated kid. Wanted to join the Marine Corps more than anything in his life. Not very bright, but young black man. Overweight. Had really thick glasses. Yeah. I mean, his eyes, you look at him, he had big old eyes. He'd take his glasses off, his eyes would be kind of tiny and small. I was like, look, but he wanted to join really bad. He's like, I want to be a Marine, sir. This is what I want to do. So his entire, the rest of his high school career, I worked with him where we were trained, we would go PTing, I'd make sure he was eating the right stuff. I'd help him study for the ASVAB test. Eventually Dion, and I got to meet his family real well, his mom, his brother. They didn't have a dad. He passed the ASVAB test with a 31. Barely passed it. Barely. 300.
There you go. Made it. He got it.
So he got in infantry. And then during the Battle of Fallujah, they were doing a raid. He broke into a house and he was one of the first guys into this door. He took a round and he got taken out. And when his family told me, because they called me to let me know, I went to his funeral and I felt kind of weird, kind of bad. I felt bad, guilty, because their son was dead and it was because of me. But you know what? They didn't treat me like that. They were appreciative. They were thankful. This is all he wanted. You helped him achieve his dream. He died serving his country because this is what he wanted, and so that made me decide I'm not going to be a career recruiter. That helped me decide I need to go do my part now. Everything that I've been telling these kids, I will never make you do anything that I won't do. Well, now it's time for me to go do what I said I'm going to do. Yeah. And so I finished my 3 years on recruiting duty. I requested a Victor unit, HMH 466. I checked in at 466. A week later, they transferred me to 465 because 465 was getting ready to go to the war. Yeah. And so this was in December 2004. So March 2005, we took off to the war. Now remember, last time I re-enlisted was in 2001. So 2005, I need to re-enlist again. So as I'm with this deployable unit now, one of the first things I do is I tell the career planner, hey, my re-enlistment's coming up. I think it's in like July or June, something like that. And so I need to submit the paperwork to get my re-enlistment package approved. I was a staff sergeant by then. I was talking to Sergeant White. That was her name. Yeah, I got you, Staff Sergeant. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. I'm gonna submit this paperwork. We'll re-enlist once we get out there. We'll take care of everything for you. You got nothing to worry about. Okay, cool. Got my rifle. Get on the plane. Say goodbye to my family. Boom. We're on our way to Iraq. First class. First class. I'm sitting up for they had this commercial first class. First time in my life I ever sat first class in a plane. I was like, this is awesome. Leaning back. You almost didn't know you were going to war.
Yeah.
But all the staff and SEALs and officers got to sit first class. We get out there to Kuwait, get off the plane. They put us in these buses, take us to where the C-130s are, and now we're on our way to Al-Assad. The C-130s, that was a scary flight.
Really?
Because they take off out of Kuwait and they go really, really, really high. And then they get to the point where they're going to drop into the airfield in Al-Assad, but they don't gradually come down. They dive.
They just
down.
bomb it.
They bomb Al-Assad. They come straight down, and as they come up there, boom, they yank up on the stick, and they think they're helicopters, bro. The C-130, it's got props, but it thinks it's a helicopter, right? Because it's doing an auto rotation. But that's the move that they use so there's not a target. They're not going to get shot at as they're coming in.
They might as well practice, Yeah. They didn't practice it.
But they were practicing with us in the back. So I got
Live cargo.
I had this frog in my throat. I'm like, we're going to die. But we get in there. A couple months go by, and I stopped getting paid. I call my wife back home, and she's complaining about not having money in the bank. And I'm like, what do you mean? I get paid every 2 weeks. What do you mean there's no money in the bank? No money came in. So then I go to the admin chief. I'm like, hey, man, what the hell's going on? And he's looking around. He's like, dude, what?
You're out of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
According to the record, you're not in the Marine Corps no more.
Bro, I'm here.
Yeah. Dude, I just got shot at. What you mean I'm not in the Marine Corps no more? Man, Sergeant White forgot to submit the paperwork, bro.
No.
And so they had to jump through hoops. They back paid me a couple months. But for those couple months I was there, the first 2 months, I had no life insurance. I had no paycheck. I'm out there.
What if you went down?
Yeah, exactly, bro. That's what I said. And so I was a crew chief. So I was flying around outside the wire the whole time, doing missions. When they finally got my paperwork straightened out and settled, we were scheduled to go out to Saddam's palace, take some Marines out there, and we're going to be there for about an hour while they did their mission, and they came back, and we're going to take them back to the base. And so the career panel was like, well, I asked my OIC, I'm like, hey, do you think it'll be okay if we do my reenlistment out there while we're there? I mean, we're just going to be sitting around not doing nothing. Yeah. He's like, let me ask. And so he went to go talk to the Sergeant Major, talk to the CO, and they were all on board with it. They called the career planner and said, hey, you screwed this up. You screwed the pooch. Now we're going to give him what he wants.
Nice.
And the thing about Saddam's palace, it's where the Euphrates River and the Tigris River intersect. And if you look at the biblical history, where those two rivers intersect, that's where the Garden of Eden used to be. And that's where they put the Babylonia. And so now, there's still some ruins out there. It's pretty cool and pretty interesting. I thought it would be I mean, first of all, I never thought I'd re-enlist on the Arizona Memorial. I never thought I'd top that. Then I topped that with Iwo Jima. And I'm like, this is it, man. I'm never going to top this. Then I topped that with the ruins of Babylon. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? Am I lucky or what? But yeah, we did it out there. Got my flag. Went back home. Then my fourth and final re-enlistment was, again, in Iraq. But I didn't want anything special that time. I was just like, we'll do it on the hangar bay here on Al-Assad next to all my friends and 53s. And so that took me to the end of my career.
Nice. That's awesome, man. So curious, you joined at a very hectic time. You experienced 9/11. You were also obviously combat tours. How many total deployments did you say you've done, and how many of them were combat tours?
So I ended up with 9 total deployments.
Okay.
In the first 10 years of my service, I did 2.
So it was just really slow in the beginning.
And then halfway through my career is when the war started. Okay. And that's when it started wrapping up. I mean, you had first-term Marines during that time in their 4 or 5 year contracts with 3 combat tours under their belts.
Right.
And that created a phenomenon within the Marine Corps that we're still seeing today. We're still suffering from that, from the cause of that. And what that caused is you had all these, young Marines would enlist for 5 to 6 years, do 3 or 4 combat tours, and then get out because they were tired. I don't want to stay no more. So that left a huge leadership gap between the junior Marines, those Marines that should have stayed in and become the next future's leaders. They were getting out. The leadership, the guys that were my age, we were still staying in because this was our job. We were already career Marines. And so we had this huge gap of NCO leadership that eventually got filled because they just started promoting really fast. Yeah. And that expedited promotion system put people in positions in leadership positions that they weren't ready for.
Right. Yeah, that's something I definitely experienced.
Yeah, and so we're still seeing that today, where there's a lack of knowledge in a lot of the MOS, especially the aviation division, department or industry, because you have to take these years to learn what you're doing and to learn it well and to do it properly. And so, we talk about it every day. You see it at work every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Skipping steps, missing parts, breaking aircraft because you don't want to read the book.
Right, for just little basic things.
And they can't turn to their senior leadership because that senior leadership today are those junior Marines that got promoted really fast.
Right, and they don't know nothing.
They don't know either.
Right.
So
yeah, and these highly skilled professions, MOSs, require that long-term know-how and experience, and it just requires that. And unfortunately, this modern Marine Corps just doesn't have that. During that time and everything that you've been through, man, I'm sure there was lots of challenging times in the MOS, outside the MOS, during getting shot at, all that kind of stuff. How did you navigate through all that? I mean, I'm sure there was countless sleepless nights. Stress was probably way through the roof as well. Yeah, man, how did you navigate through that?
So these challenges that we encounter in the Marine Corps, they're different than what you would encounter out in the civilian sector. They're a little bit sometimes more dangerous, a little bit scarier, unexpected.
For sure.
But you're not alone. You're not alone. That band of brothers, that Marine to your left, that Marine to your right, you can be from different parts of the world, different races, different age, whatever the differences are, doesn't matter. In the end, that Marine that's next to you is the person that you lean on to get through all these challenges that we dealt with. I was in an accident out there where we lost a Marine. We had a Marine put a rifle in his mouth and pull the trigger at a bus stop, take his own life. We had rockets flying over our head and hitting, inside the base and taking somebody out that was just coming out of the bathroom, so those scenarios like that, they're hard. They're hard. They eat at you, especially the ceremonies that we do afterwards.
But those are so rough.
Yeah, and this is in war. It's even harder when we're losing Marines during training. That it's not the wartime. During war times. So, so you have to lean on each other to be able to talk to, because they're your friends, they're your service brothers and sisters, they're your family. When you're deployed, that's all you got. We all have families back home. And we're not taking away from anybody's family back home. But when you're on deployment, those men and women that you're with, they are your family. They're the guys that you have to be able to rely on and trust with your life.
Correct.
And if you can't trust them with your life, then something's wrong. But for the most part, that's one good thing about the military, especially the Marine Corps, is that brotherhood, that bond that we have with each other. Even today as a Uber driver, man, I pick up service members and, younger than me, Marines, and we start chit-chat like we were best friends. I pick up guys older than me that were Marines. Hey, hoorah, devil dog. And again, we chit-chat like we were best friends.
Yeah, that bond is just something.
So, and to experience a tragic event with others, it creates an even tighter bond. You've seen the way me and Brandon joke around a lot.
Yeah.
We poke fun at each other. We went to combat together, him and I. We did a tour, and now here we are, 15, 20 years later, still working together as civilians, but we still have that tight bond. And it's funny because we both have totally opposite political views. And we can fight about it, but it does not take away the fact that we are really good friends because of that experience that we shared in the Marine Corps. So how do we get through these challenges? It's relying on each other.
Right.
You can't do it alone.
Yeah, I agree.
When you try to do it alone, you go crazy.
Yeah.
You get images, you get stress, depression. You have to be able to talk to somebody. And that's, one of the good things that our Vietnam veteran brothers didn't have that we have today. The VA provides a lot of good services for us now. They take care of us when we have those kind of problems and issues.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. And for the guys that are listening out there, it boils down to having a community, just letting you guys know that you guys aren't alone out there. Even for you guys that are not military members, it's really important to plug in, find somebody out there or find a community that you can really talk to and be a part of. I want to know something about you, because obviously we have a chain of command system, right? In the Marine Corps, we have ranks, we have billets, we have all this hierarchy that we have to abide by. We quote unquote have to, but the lines do get drawn at certain areas. So you being a crew chief, for ones that don't know that's someone who basically rides in the helicopter. Well, in Jose's and Gunny's case here, rides in the helicopter and makes significant calls for the pilots, because the pilots are only allowed to sit in the chairs and basically pilot the aircraft. They can't see 360 around the aircraft, so that's where the crew chiefs come in. And they do a lot of other things as well, very important things, but mainly they're the eyes for the helicopter here. Is there a moment where you had to basically check the pilots because they were doing something that just hands out was wrong, or they were, just out of line? And secondly, did that experience carry on to your personal life today?
I've kicked pilots out of the helicopter.
Heck yeah. Nice.
I've gotten to, usually the younger ones, if they're totally messing up and they get out of control and they can't compose themselves and do their job, get out. Because if you don't, I will. Because you're going to kill somebody.
Right. And let's back up a little bit. So Jose and I were both enlisted, and all pilots are officers. This is a whole different echelon, and we aren't supposed to be doing this kind of, it's like talking to your grandparents, basically. And anyway, sorry, go on, Jose.
Yeah, so with or without all due respect, I would tell the young pilots, I'm like, sir, lieutenant, you're not in the right place. You're not in the right state of mind right now to continue to fly. Because flying the helicopter is hard. Flying an airplane, you pull full power, you release the brakes, the plane gets enough airspeed, the air goes over the airfoil, creates lift, and boom, you're off. Helicopters, all kinds of coordinating that you got to do with the sticks, and the cyclic stick, the collective stick, you got to put it up just right.
Yeah. Your hands, your feet.
Yeah. So there's a lot more coordination involved, and so these pilots, they got to be well trained. And so all the flying that we do is to get them that training, to make them better sticks at the controls, better stick wigglers, right? And but when they're starting off, they're not. When they're starting off, they're not. And it would be an injustice not to tell them, because they wouldn't get better. Mm-hmm. And so I've got friends today that are, senior majors or lieutenant colonels that when I was flying as a staff sergeant, they were young lieutenants, and I've sat with them at lunch, and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm glad I had a gunny like you to put me in my place, because I am who I am today because of people like you. Mm-hmm. You kept it real for me. You didn't just let me continue to do the wrong thing on the aircraft. And so by not being blatantly disrespectful or rude, but being forceful with them, and genuine, hey, you're not doing this right. Mm-hmm. You're making a mistake, and you're constantly making the same mistake, even after we told you to stop making that mistake. If you can't stop making that mistake, you should be done flying for today and try again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, there's one time we were in 2001, we were doing carrier calls. So we're flying off the ship, and all we had to do is lift up, slide left, go on a pattern of 300 feet. Actually, it was at nighttime, so 500 feet pattern. Come back around, line up, and then put it back on the ship. And the whole time, obviously, the ship's out of sea, so you get the waves. Ship's going up and down, so it's difficult.
It's nighttime.
It's nighttime. The seas are a little bit rough, so ship's going up and down, up and down. And so you got to kind of coordinate the 53 and bring it in nice and soft. And I'm hanging out the window. I'm making these calls for the pilots. I'm like, okay, slide right, and I'm giving them It sounds like a distance, but it's really not. It's just like a countdown, you know. Because I mean, I don't have a calibrated eye. I can't tell them, hey, we're 25 feet off the deck. I don't know, but it's a reference. Hey, 25, 20, 15, and in their mind, they're like, I'm getting lower. I'm getting lower. You know, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're on deck. And as soon as they hear me say you're on deck, they're putting the stick down.
Right.
So that we're not bouncing and falling
Right,
off.
we're slamming it down. Basically, you want to updraft, so you're sucking the aircraft to the ground.
Yeah, so we're making these calls, and this one pilot, you know, he comes up into a hover, he slides left, but he drops collective. So instead of pulling collective, he drops it. Instead of going up and out, we went out and down.
Yeah.
So before you know it, I'm seeing the flight deck of the ship go above me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, power, power, power. So he pulls power. He was the co-pilot. The pilot was a major, takes the controls, and he pulls us out, gets us into a 500 pattern, and he's like, are you good? The lieutenant's like, yeah, I'm good, sir. All right, he gives him the controls back. So he starts going in a circle. We were doing a 180, a left 180. And he had a bad habit of when he'd get nervous, he would grip the collective stick. And so when you're flying in a 53, there's this thing called AFCS, Automatic Flight Control System. And there's a button that's called trim. That trim, when you set the trim on, the sticks will stay in whatever. It's like cruise control. The sticks will stay in the position you have them on with the trim on. Well, on the collective stick, there's a button called trim release. You don't want to push the trim release button when you're flying straight and level, because now you're not trimmed no more.
Yeah, now you in control.
And this lieutenant would get nervous. He would grip the collective and press the trim release button without knowing. So we were porpoising in this pattern, you know. And so getting lined up to land was very hard. And so he attempted like 2 or 3 times. We have to keep waving off. He'd come in 50 feet too high. You know, he'd come in too low. He eventually got us down, but I mean, he almost killed us on one of those turns. We were dropping into the water. We're at like an 800-foot rate per minute descent.
Oh my gosh!
From 500 feet.
Oh my gosh!
So it was a matter of seconds, bro. I saw water rushing up at us, and again we're screaming, "Power, power, 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 power!" Yank an armpit full of collective, getting all this power to lift the aircraft up. You got the sea waters coming into the cabin. It was crazy, bro.
That is insane.
I had a Coke can in my hand, and it ended up all over my flight suit because I was like, I squished it, bro. Oh man, my asshole was puckered, man.
Oh man.
But the major took the controls, got us back on the deck, and that's when I told the lieutenant. Well, actually, I didn't say nothing at first. I lit up. I smoked back in those days. So I took out a cigarette. I lit. I was smoking. Yeah, I'm stressed. And the lieutenant's like, "Do you smell smoke? Do you smell smoke? Goddamn right, you smell smoke, sir. You almost killed us. Do you mind?" But nothing. I'm done flying. Either you get off or I get off. But one of us is getting off this helicopter. I think I'm done for the night. He walked off.
Yeah.
Big Mac. That was his call sign, Big Mac.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of stories like that, man.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to put people in their place, but respectfully, you know. I mean, there's times I've done it too. And for people, if they don't take it right, then they don't take it right. But that's on them, especially in this line of work or even military, in any kind of line of work, right? When lives are on line, you got to be that person to step up and say something.
But unfortunately, in today's society, that's hard.
Right.
It's hard because people are so sensitive.
Right.
People are so sensitive. They don't know how to take constructive criticism. When you say something to them, they think you're yelling at them. You know, it's like, dude, you're wrong. And people don't like hearing they're wrong. Yeah.
But
so
it's got to be done. It's got to be done sometimes. After all your deployments, after 20 years of service, man, 2013, right? It's when you finally decide to hang it up and come over to the good old civilian sector, right? That transition period. I know for myself, we all joke about it, right? Oh yeah, you're gonna be free now, and we all put up. I know I did. We put up a front that we're free. We're finally free. We put up a front saying that this is a great thing. I got it all figured out. I got this plan. I'm going to this school. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But deep down, we're miserable, right? Like I know it was for me, and a lot of my friends. Same thing when we actually get down to the nitty gritty and talk about it. For me, it was miserable. I knew I was going to miss my brothers. I felt like I was never going to see them again. I felt like I was losing a family member. I felt like it was a very depressing, sad time, but I put up a facade of I'm going to be free. Mm-hmm. Was that something you felt too?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Khit. 4 years, 20 years, 30 years, it don't matter. That transition is scary as hell.
Right.
Because there are so many unknown factors.
Right.
You know, you're so used to having a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table, job security, financial stability, medical, dental, life insurance, all taken care of. You used to get up in the morning, going to work, getting paid. You used to get up in the morning, not going to work, still getting paid. You know,
Yeah.
a job that's giving you 30 days annual leave, and then all kinds of free time on top of that. The 72s, the 96s. I mean, dude, all this time off. And now you have to fend for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you can get fired. Don't forget about that.
My first job as a civilian after I retired was at a Montgomery Airfield, working as an A&P mechanic at a place called Gibbs Aircraft Services. I was an A&P mechanic doing all kinds of cool little jobs, knick-knack jobs. Immediately, like at the same time, during that time, I was going through my VA process of setting my file for my claim and getting my disability rating. So I was visiting the VA hospital a lot. And there was one right there on Arrow Drive, a new one that was close to where I was working. And so I was going there against a cortisone shot for my shoulder. And I told my boss one day, I had an appointment in the morning. I said, listen, we have a break between 10 and 10:20 every morning. I've got an appointment at 10:30. Do you mind if I leave, about 10:15, go across the street, get my shot, come right back. I'll be back maybe, 10:45, 10:50. Won't be gone too long, maybe an hour tops. And Dwayne was his name. He's like, yeah, man, don't worry about it. Take as much time as you need. Go get your VA stuff done. I know that's important. I'm like, cool, man. Thanks. You're awesome. And I start walking away. And he's like, yeah, just don't forget to clock out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, what? What? Yeah, clock out. Oh, man.
Yeah,
I ain't getting paid.
You ain't getting that
No wonder
bread.
you don't care how long I take.
Yeah.
Dude. I was like, so that's when the civilian sector actually hit me, dude. I was like, if you're not working, you're not making money. Time is money.
Yep.
So that transition, from getting used to always knowing where your money was coming from to having to work for it now, to having to earn it now. Not that we didn't earn it as service members. We earned everything we had.
Right. It's like this realization.
You weren't clocking in or clocking out.
Yeah.
You were a Marine 24/7, right? And so, that's when it went down. So that transition, not knowing, going from getting a paycheck every 2 weeks to because I was retired to only getting it once a month. Service members that don't retire, they don't have nothing.
Yeah, we don't get nothing.
You have to realize the job you're going to have. Now you got to pay rent. Now I got to pay for food. Now I got to get my car. I got to get a job. I got all these expenses that you didn't have before.
Yeah, these responsibilities.
Responsibilities, yes.
Yep.
So are you really free?
Yeah.
I'm free now. Are you?
Yeah.
Do you really think you're free?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Get out.
Yeah. And these are kind of thoughts that like a lot of us hide, this kind of, for me, it wasn't really a financial thing because I was a civilian for like 3 or 4 years. I worked in the oil fields and things like that. For me, it was a brotherhood thing that I missed. And it was the bond. And I even told my wife during that transition, I was like, I don't think I'm going to make any friends. And I don't think she understood because I wasn't really good at communicating what I was feeling. And I'm still not working on it. But she didn't understand and I couldn't really translate it. And that's what I was trying to translate was I'm going to miss my brothers and that feeling of family. So that's something that I was going through. And it really, really brought me down really far, actually. But I was able to, climb my way out of there. And but yeah, it was a very challenging time for me for sure.
I mean, you speak the truth, bro. And that resiliency that we learn in the Marine Corps is the reason we can't climb back out of these situations, these holes.
Yeah, I agree.
That thing that you missed. That's that brotherhood that we talked about, that bond that we create with other Marines. Our families at the time wherever we are. I used to tell my Marines all the time they'd be homesick. I'm like, hey, look, warrior. Hey, leatherneck. Hey, devil dog. What you sad about? Your home is where you hang your hat. So wherever the Marine Corps sends you, that's your new home. Mm-hmm. We're your family. We got you. We got your back. You're not alone. We may not have, we may be a river city and don't have internet. We may be, and the phones on base may not work. The mail's not going out or coming in the way it's supposed to. But that family's fine back home.
Mm-hmm.
This is the family who's got you right now.
Right.
So, you do miss it. And man, I tell you what, when I left the Marine Corps, I missed it a lot. I missed it so much so that I came back.
Yeah, we were right there.
Yeah.
It's very challenging, man. I'm glad, it brought you back, right? And I'm glad it doesn't, not to say that it doesn't affect us to this day, but we were able to overcome that, right?
There's something that we get out of the Marine Corps that you can't find in the civilian sector. It didn't matter what job I had or where I went. The people that I work with, the vibe wasn't there. Mm-hmm. They just didn't understand, our meticulous way of making sure everything was covered and aligned.
Yep.
The discipline, the integrity. Do your job. Pull your weight. Have some kind of don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Just make it happen.
Move with a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Just get it done, man. And don't wait for somebody to ask you, right? It's just something about it, and it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been there, right? And it's me and Petru talk about it, and it's just something it's hard.
Look at your haircut. How long have you been out?
6 years.
Okay, and you still have a high and tight.
I still rock the haircut.
I've been out for 13 years.
Yeah,
I still get my haircut every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
every 2 weeks I go get my haircut. I still make the creases on my rack when I make my bed.
Yeah, it's something about it just being squared away. Squared away in all aspects of life, almost. And
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Some people say we're institutionalized. Some people say we're set in our ways, but. Okay, so I'm disciplined. What's so bad about that?
Right. So what we are?
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
It's not.
Whatever.
It's not.
Now that we've been out, right, and after even a long time, and when you look back at things, and you start to see it in a different light or in a different perspective, or you see the lessons that you never saw when you were in it, right? Or the purposes or the patterns or the things that we were doing. Is that something that you saw as well? Or is that something, they weren't so obvious then, but obviously now it's super obvious. What are some things that you noticed then? Or what are some of those things?
We all make mistakes. Part of growing up is making mistakes, especially in the Marine Corps. Because there's so many different influences. Always trying to outdo the other guys. So that friendly competition, right? And unfortunately, alcohol has always got something to do with it. So that's one of the biggest things that I see today is that I don't do things under the influence anymore. I've seen too many people make mistakes, get hurt, bad because they were under the influence. So. And my grandfather died young because of alcoholism. So for me, that kept me from falling down that rabbit hole. I did drink, I had fun, but I never drank to that level. Mm-hmm. Where I would see some people, had actual problems. Some people would end up in treatment because of it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there's one thing that's certain in life is we're all going to change. You're not going to be the same person. Today that you're going to be 20 years ago, that you were 20 years ago.
Right.
And along that path, that journey that you're on, you're going to make mistakes. We just gotta, learn from those mistakes, and hopefully not do them again. And so that's all part of maturing. Mm-hmm. That's all part of getting older. Dude, I'm about to be 52.
Oh man, you don't look it at all.
But hey, the Marine Corps. Right? The Marine Corps, do the push-ups, right?
Yeah.
34 days?
Day 34, yeah.
34 days, yeah. But it's just the way of life. The Marine Corps is not I've always said to people that ask me, the Marine Corps is not a military service. The Marine Corps is a way of life. It's a way of being.
Yes, sir.
It grows on you. It becomes you. You have to drink the Kool-Aid, and careerists, we drank the Kool-Aid. We believe in it. This is us. This is who we are. But we all get the same thing out of the Marine Corps. There's a lot of everybody wants to join a service to learn a skill. I want to get a skill set that's going to transfer into the civilian sector so I can make a lot of money, sir. Cool. That's very honorable. That's actually kind of smart. But aside from that, we get a lot of intangible qualities that people don't realize. The ability to get up every day and go to work on time. That's something that employers love. Mm-hmm. I don't know any employer doesn't want their employee to be there on time.
Right.
The ability to follow orders and accomplish your mission at work. If you can't, you're getting fired. Yeah. To be dependable, to be reliable, to be loyal. These are all intangible qualities that people don't join the Marine Corps for, but they're getting them whether they know it or not. Again, that all makes us who we are. And I like to think that the other branches do the same thing. The Army, the Navy, maybe not the Navy, but the Air Force do the same thing to their service members. Not as good as the Marine Corps, though. The Marine Corps instills that discipline, honor, courage, commitment, right, into each and every one of us. That's our core values: honor, courage, commitment. Mm-hmm. So we make mistakes, we learn from them, we try not to do it again.
Right. Yeah, for sure, man. Now, is that something or is that a core foundation, or a core meaning you learned from your family, or is that some kind of belief, or is that something like that was instilled from you as a child or something like that?
I come from a different generation where, yes, the answer was yes. My dad will whoop us. My dad and my mom would take a bout and just beat the crap out of you when you didn't do something. I was afraid to do bad things in front of mom and dad. Just the look alone would stop me and my brother in our tracks.
Right. Yeah.
We'd be like a deer to headlights. But today, no, the society's different today, bro. Today, Child Protective Services, Mothers of America, call it whatever you want, man.
It's like the parents are afraid of the kids
nowadays. Yes, exactly. They're afraid that they're going to get the cops called on them. Or go ahead and smack your kid at a store and see how many people are going to stand there with their phones judging you right away. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, you hit your child. He was beating up on his sister. Mm-hmm. But so the upbringing was different in my times. So for me, to answer your question, it was both. The values that my family instilled in me, and then the values that I picked up from the Marine Corps. It just strengthened what I already knew to be right, the right way to be. Right. And then just the Marine Corps just shaped you into what they wanted. A United States Marine.
Right. So we talked a lot about the Marine Corps. You're obviously a really family-oriented person. You always wanted to stay in California, close to your family, I'm assuming. You're really close with your family to this day as well, right? Mm-hmm. I assume. Would you consider yourself or your family religious by any matter?
Oh, yeah. My folks are very religious.
Really? Okay.
And growing up with my folks, I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
They would take us to church every Sunday. Easter's coming up.
Yeah, it is. It's next week, yeah.
I'm not as religious anymore as I used to be. My folks hope they tell me all the time, because I am close to them. I see them a lot. They always tell me, you should be closer to God, mijo. Don't stray from God. And I tell them, look, I'm not. It's just I have a different relationship with the man. I believe in God. I'm a believer. I'm not an atheist. I believe in him. I know he's there, but I also don't feel that I have to be sitting in a building surrounded by a bunch of people praying to him. I talk to him everywhere I go. We have conversations. And I like to believe he's listening. Or either that or I'm just crazy talking to myself. But yeah. So part of that is because of my upbringing. Part of that is because I grew up. I went to Catholic church for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So for 3 years, I was in the Catholic church, and I prayed to God that my folks wouldn't send me to a private Catholic high school, because I wanted to go to the regular public high school. And it was too expensive, so I had to go to the public high school. And he answered my call.
So he does answer prayers.
He does, yeah. But yeah, every time I was in country. Mm-hmm. Every time I was I did 3 combat tours, and every time I was out there, I never went out there without my rosary.
Yeah.
So we got to believe in something. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's silly of me to think, but I felt that, he was with me the whole time that I was in all my missions. when I crashed a helicopter in 2005 out there by the ball sack, in the middle of the night, when we were caught in a sandstorm, in mid-flight, getting down to the deck safely, all those close calls in the helicopter with those pilots. He's always with us.
Right.
So I think it helped me believing that he was there, having my little rosary, having a little Bible the size of my cell phone, that I carry with me all the time, kept me close to God.
Yeah, for sure, man. I never grew up with the Lord. Like my parents were, they're from Laos, so you guys probably don't know. It's next to Thailand. My parents are from Laos, right? So they're predominantly Buddhist. So I never grew up with God or believing in God or anything like that. I was introduced to it from some friends, but I just, I never was into God at all. But so I never had that security with me like you have that. Now I do, but you kind of having that kind of backup plan in the back, I think plays an effect of you just. It sounds like you are a good person.
I try to be.
and having that good conscience is just, it comes from somewhere, right? And because I know when I was growing up, not having that good conscience, I was a bad person. Like I was I was borderline manipulative and just really, I would burn bridges everywhere I went. If my goal was in front and you were in the way, I would beat the crap out of you to get there. And that's how I was, and I didn't care. Until now, and that's why I asked the question. Now when I look back, I realized my flaws, and I realized that because my parents, I'm not blaming them by any means, they were never really there. So I was always missing that. And I think that has to play with the fact that I was missing something, right? Like I was just missing the family the whole time. So,
bro, even when they are there, when they're not there, we say we ended up a certain way because of it. But even when they're there, we go through this rebellious stage, in our teens when we don't listen to, we want to do our own thing, right? We're invincible. We could do anything, nothing. We could do no wrong. Everything that we're doing is planned, and we know it all. And honestly, that's where I was in my third semester in college. I was at that point where I was not studying, not doing what I was supposed to, going to parties too much, hanging out with the wrong people, hanging out with the wrong crowds, that my grades started to slip. I like to, say, oh, yeah, I did the honorable thing and step down so my brother can go to college. But no, I was getting ready to get kicked out of college. I was getting ready to get kicked out of college. And to face my dad and tell him I failed you was draining. It was embarrassing. It was a complete letdown, because he was working hard to put us through college. And so to me, the Marine Corps was that saving grace to be able to get back on track, get back in line, to get disciplined again and to finish. And bro, I was 40 years old going back to college. I retired from the Marine Corps, went back to college, and I completed my degree and I got my Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics. So I promised mom and dad that I'd finish it, so I did.
Nice.
It just took me a long, long time to do it.
Yeah.
I look back today, like you said, looking back, do we wish we could do things different? Yeah, I wish I could have finished college the first time. It sucks that I had to do it twice.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wasn't ready for it then.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps put me back in line, and then helped me pay for school.
Hey, for sure, man, for sure. Yeah. And you saying that kind of reminds how in the Bible it says, like, there's a season for everything, right? And for you, at the time when you were going in, when the first time you were in college, that was not the right season for you. And now, with everything you've learned and everything you've matured and everything like that, this is the right season for you now. And now you're in the right headspace. You're in all this kind of, it prepared you for where you are now. So now that you've been out for a few years, right? You got a pretty stable job. You've got obviously you finished school finally, right? Well, not finally, but you finished school. What are some future plans? What are some plans you got going on?
The job that I have now, the federal job, if I stick it out another 9 years, I can get a second pension. So I have my military pension, then I have a federal pension, which is appealing. But at the same time, I also want to get into my field of study, which is aeronautics. I'm passionate about aircraft. You know, I love planes. You know, I love everything that flies. But to me, there's, especially right now, there's been so many accidents, both military and civilian, in civilian air, that are unexplainable. That people don't understand why these helicopters and planes are crashing just out of the blue. You know, last week there was a helicopter that fell into the Hudson River. I told you about it. It came apart in flight. You know, and you know, it wasn't pilot error. It was that was actually mechanical. That was a flaw in the design that caused it. But honestly, my passion, if I could have my way right now, I would have a job with the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board. You know, they're the investigators of airplane crashes. They do trains as well on boats, but mostly you hear about them. Whenever an airplane crashes, they're the guys that send a go team. They send a team out there to investigate what happened. They're the forensic science of aircraft crashes. And I don't want to do that to put blame on somebody, say, oh yeah, the pilot was wrong, the company was wrong. Oh, no. I want to do it because I want to figure out what happened. Because when you figure out what happened, when you get to the root cause of what these planes are crashing for, you can figure out a way to fix it and prevent that from happening again. And so aviation safety to me is important. And that's why I got into aeronautics. You know, that's why I'm still trying to, you know, finish up my aircraft investigation certifications. You know, the thing is that those jobs are hard to get.
Yeah.
NTSB jobs are few. But there's other ways to get through there. You know, I mean, FAA hires all the time. And when I'm ready to leave NATEC, which is where I work now, which I'm not yet because I love that job. It's just too easy, man. It's so much fun. We have so much fun at work.
We do. We definitely do.
And what we do is important. You know, we're training Marines. But there's always a higher passion, right? Somewhere you want to be in. So that's where I could see myself going. And I would actually move to wherever that job is. You know, I don't have to stay in California. I'm from here. You know, my family's still here, but there's going to be a time when my daughter's going to be old enough that she don't need me no more. Mom and dad are going to, you know, run their course eventually. And so that's when I'm going to start really looking hard at getting me a job with the FAA if I can't get into the NTSB.
So you mentioned the NTSB, right? And you want to get into it not to bash on anybody, but to fix the problems to help save lives.
Yeah.
Where does that passion come from?
The Marine Corps. I've been doing it my whole career, fixing planes, making sure it was done right. When I was the Cloud Duty inspector, making sure things were done right. As a plane captain, inspecting the planes, making sure that the plane was flying right. As a quality assurance representative, as a quality assurance chief, you know, as NATEC, that's what we do. You know, we train Marines to make sure that the planes are safe for flight.
Right. But I think it sounds like you're more interested in people not dying.
Of course.
Right.
You know, we've all lost. We all know somebody that's died in a plane crash.
We have.
Unfortunately, it's happened. You know, and so to be able to save lives, by making sure the aircraft are flying safely, you know, that's important to me.
Right.
Kobe Bryant and his family would be alive today if that pilot hadn't flown that day. He knew he shouldn't have flown, and he still did. You know, 361's aircraft last year, 5 Marines died. They shouldn't have flown back. They could have stayed in Yuma, but they flew back into a storm that had been sitting here for a week. Poor choices. You know, there's human factors that you have to take a look at as well as, you know, aircraft design, you know, wearing components and stuff. So I mean, like I said, the NTSB is a forensic science of aircraft crashes.
So we've talked about some, you know, your past, your 20 years, some big picture things. Where would you say your life is right now? How is your headspace? How's life treating you right now, Gunny Valdez?
You know what? The last couple of years have been pretty rough for me.
Yeah.
You know, like I said earlier, people change. You know, we're not the same people forever. We're going to be different. And so I'm going through a divorce. And that's,
sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah, it happens. But that's part of you know, of growing up. You know, like I said, she changed, I changed. We're 2 different people now. We're still friends, but that put my future, everything that I had worked hard for and set up to just cruise in my old age, into jeopardy, because now all of a sudden I'm losing half of everything that I've ever worked for to her. You know, and so There's certain things that are happening that I don't agree with, mostly because that's the way California laws are. I'm still trying to fight some of that stuff in the courts. Things are right in the beginning of the divorce process, things were really bad. I was really low. Thanks to friends and the VA support system and the resiliency that I learned from the Marine Corps, I was able to keep on fighting, to keep moving forward. I think a lesser person would have just quit. Just said, I'm done working. Mm-hmm. You can't get what I don't have. Depression is a horrible thing, man. If you don't talk to somebody, if you don't, acknowledge that it's happening, it could end up bad. It could end up with, you're trying to hurt yourself or something. Mm-hmm. So, knowing that there's support out there, knowing that the VA system can help you, during those things. And I got counseling. I had psychiatric help. I talked to friends like yourself. It's like, look, man, I'm going through some hard times. But knowing you got the support and never quitting, knowing that there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There's got to be a silver lining in every cloud. You just got to keep going. And so right now, things are kind of stable. The divorce isn't final yet, but we are kind of at least now communicating better. And so I have, high hopes that it will be over soon. Mm-hmm. And so once it is over, because I can't really continue my life until I close that chapter in my life. I have to close that chapter to continue to move forward with what I've planned to do with my career. And so being able to close that chapter will allow me to continue with my future plans, which is to, start my own business and on the side, get into the NTSB and on the side, have my own business in the automotive field.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. And I appreciate you sharing that about with you and your wife.
For now.
Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable and explaining that. I know life for me, same in the last couple of years, I've been up and down as well. I mean, for me, it's been a roller coaster for sure. But thanks to friends that like Petru here and friends like yourself, the resiliency that the Marine Corps has really given me, but ultimately for myself, I've really found hope in God, in the Lord, right? And what I've ultimately realized for myself is that every time I trust myself and every time I find that I'm going to do what I want to do, yes, I'm temporarily happy for the moment, or I believe in myself. Yeah, I'm temporarily happy for a minute or a month or a year or this or that. It eventually ends, right? That this is my life. That happiness ends somehow. And when I found God, he's never ending, right? He's never ending and he's always going to be there. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely not easy, like walking with God ever. I mean, not saying ever, but it's not always easy. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, he never leaves. Like, he never leaves. So going back to like the Marine Corps thing, the Marine Corps ended for me. That's when I went through my miserable phase where I got angry again, started drinking, all this other stuff, got depressed. But yeah, that ended. My college days, my college friends, that ended. Hawaii ended. Family, friends, those always end. But at the end of the day, what realized it for me, God never ends. And yeah, I always have God's support. So that kind of, in the last few years, that's what kind of solidified it for me. And that made me come to my senses, and my realization really helped me out in the last couple of years with my walk in faith and just in life in general. It gave me a lot of peace and letting go. And yeah, I wanted to share that with you. And it seems like you got a lot of support from the military, which is great. I mean, I used some of that too, but eventually that failed me, because I don't see a lot of my military buddies anymore. For me, I'm the type of person that if you're not in front of my face, you don't exist, kind of type of thing. And unfortunately, we're close friends right now, but eventually you're going to be gone and it's going to crush me. But he's never going to leave me. So that's, for me, that was something that really solidified it. But, yeah.
Bro, if you want, you can put an ADU in your backyard and I'll move in.
I mean,
I'll be there till I'm 80 years old. You want me to, bro?
I'll swing that by my wife, Yeah. But
I'll mow your lawn every once a week.
What if I move out of the country? Well,
We'll see what happens.
well, yeah, I appreciate you sharing. So we're coming up on the ending here of our podcast here, but here at the Barracks Life, we have a tradition. So we like to connect our guests to previous guests and future guests. So if you will, I would like you to draw 2 questions from this bowl here and answer them. These are questions from the previous guests.
Okay.
So draw from this bowl.
2?
And, 1 question at a time. Please read it out loud and answer it.
It says, why did they choose to join the military, and did economic hardship play a role? Well, alcohol was involved when I joined the military. It was more of a challenge. But no, for me at the time, economic hardship was not bad because I had my family. You know, my parents, blessed support was there. To be able to use the Marine Corps as a stepping stone for my future is what was appealing to me. You know, I said, if I could do these 4 years, I can get the college money, try college again. You know, won't have to be a burden on mom and dad no more. So that's why I chose to join. I needed to join because I wasn't in the right place in school at the time. If I had not joined, I would have failed out of college. I don't know where I would have ended up. My dad probably would have forced me to join the post office with him. And I don't know, I'd be carrying a can of mace everywhere I went. So, yeah, that's why.
All right. Question number 2.
Number 2. No. The question is, do you ever regret serving in the military? No. No, 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 and no. And I say that to a lot of my clients because I get asked this question a lot when I'm driving. Do you regret being in the military? Nope, I do not. There was so much. I learned so much. I benefited so much from it. I got to travel around the world. You know, I got paid to travel around the world. I got to live in Hawaii. I got to live in Japan, Thailand, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Guam. I fucking learned how to ski in Bahrain, Dubai. I did whitewater rafting in Australia. I mean, come on, dude. What's there to regret? I rode elephants in Thailand. I got knocked the hell out in Thailand. But in my defense, that Thai boxer had a third leg.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't regret any of it, dude.
Awesome.
I would do it again if I could.
Awesome. So now that you've answered 2 questions from our bowl of questions, what are 2 questions you have for the next guest? Just speak it into the mic.
Let me see. If your son or daughter wanted to join the military, but not the same branch of service that you were in, would you let them?
Ooh, that's a good one. All right. Question number 2.
What was your most embarrassing moment on deployment?
Nice.
Because we've all had one.
Yeah, for sure.
We've all had one. I know we have.
For sure. Man, there's so many. But thank you for those questions and those answers. Those will actually be going to the collection of our growing bowl. This is going to be part of the common bond that we all share, part of this podcast. So I appreciate you adding to those. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So your story is amazing. You know, it shares a lot of wisdom, it shows a lot of character. What would you share to those walking in a similar path, especially those transitioning after long military careers?
The biggest thing that I like to share with people that are getting ready to transition, whether they've done 4 years, 6 years, 20 or 30, because I talk to people that are, you know, months away from retiring, you know, after 30 years. And so the number one thing I tell everybody is, you're not alone. There's so many support groups out there to help you in this transition. You've got things like the Disabled Veterans Administration. You got the Veterans of Foreign Wars. You got the American Legion. You've got the Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs Department. You got all kinds of, and then you have prior service members that have gone through that transition, that any one of them that you ask will be willing to help you, whether you know them or not. You know how many guys I've given the phone number to help increase their disability rate. People I just met, service members, that they're not, I'm 10%, 20%. I'm like, you should be getting more. Call this number, and I'll never see them again. I don't know if they call or got their ratings higher or not, but there's so much support moving forward. Don't be stubborn and use it.
Right. I'd like to add to that, and don't be so prideful.
Yeah.
Because we tend to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And that also reminds me of that another verse popped in my head, right? Some of you are probably familiar with, maybe even you, right? It's Proverbs. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So before we wrap things up, if you could share one more message with our listeners about military life in general, whether it be out there on the line actually working or when you quote unquote clock out and go home, what would it be? What would you like the listeners to know?
Serving in the military should not be a last resort. I hear this all the time. What are you going to do after high school? Well, blah, 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 blah. And as a last resort, I'll do the military. Why? The military is not a last resort. The military is the perfect way to set up that solid foundation for your future, because of all the intangible qualities that you're going to gain while you're in, whether it's 4, 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. You're going to gain something out of it. America is not like that. We don't force people to do, mandatory service like other countries. But if we could, can you imagine how much better this place would be? Think about it. It's not a bad place.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us today, Gunny. Your 20 years of service, 7 deployments, and incredible reenlistment locations tell a story of dedication and commitment that's truly inspiring. To our listeners, remember that every service member's journey is unique, yet together they form a rich tapestry of military life. Join us next week for another compelling story from the Barracks Life. Until then, this is former Sergeant Khit Lovan, United States Marine Corps, reminding you that where boots hit the deck, stories take flight.